Most people do not fail because they lack talent. Fail because they give away their time, energy, and attention too easily. They make promises to themselves and break them. They start strong and stop early. They wait for motivation and then wonder why nothing changes. This audiobook is about a different way to live. Beyond Limits is for the person who is tired of excuses and ready for real change. It is for anyone who wants more control over their habits, more strength in hard moments, and more peace in daily life. Inside these chapters, you will hear simple truths that can change how you think, how you act, and how you handle pressure. You will see how small choices shape a life, and how discipline can become a source of calm, not stress. There is nothing complicated here. Just honest guidance, practical steps, and steady encouragement. If you stay with this audiobook, you will hear how to build discipline one day at a time, how to stay focused when distractions pull at you, and how to keep moving when life feels heavy. The life you want is possible. It starts when you stop waiting and begin choosing better today. Chapter 1. Build discipline through small daily promises and follow through. Discipline does not begin with a dramatic decision. It begins with a quiet promise, a small promise. A promise so small that it almost feels too simple to matter. Wake up at the same time, drink a glass of water, write one paragraph, walk for 10 minutes, put the phone away for 1 hour. Finish the task you started. These may look ordinary, but ordinary actions repeated with honesty change a life more than rare bursts of motivation ever will. Many people wait for a better mood before they act. They wait for confidence to show up first. They wait for the right time, the perfect schedule, the ideal energy, and a strong sense of desire. But life rarely gives perfect conditions. Most days are full of noise, pressure, tiredness, and doubt. That is why discipline matters. Discipline is not about feeling inspired all the time. It is about doing what you said you would do even when the feeling is missing. It is about becoming a person whose words mean something. That kind of person is built one small promise at a time. A small promise has power because it is real. It does not pretend you can become a different person overnight. It does not ask you to become extreme. It asks you to become honest. If you tell yourself you will read 5 pages, then read 5 pages. If you say you will make your bed every morning, then make it. If you decide that you will study for 20 minutes without checking your phone, then stay with the study. When you keep a small promise, you send a clear message to your mind. My word matters. That message changes your identity more than excitement ever could. A lack of discipline is often not caused by laziness. It is caused by broken trust. People break promises to themselves so often that they stop believing their own plans. They say they will start tomorrow. Tomorrow comes and nothing changes. They say they will eat better, sleep earlier, exercise more, stop wasting time, and finish what matters. But each broken promise makes the next one easier to break. Over time, they do not only lose habits, they lose self-respect. That is why this chapter begins with something simple. If you want a strong life, begin by becoming reliable to yourself. Start small enough that success is likely. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. A common mistake is to set a huge goal and then collapse under the pressure. A person who has not exercised in months may decide to work out for 2 hours every day. A person who has not read in years may decide to finish a book in a week. A person who has no steady routine may try to rebuild an entire life in one weekend. The result is usually the same. The plan feels heavy, the mind resists, and the person quits. Then shame enters. Shame makes the next attempt harder. A broken promise does more damage than a small promise ever will. A smaller promise is easier to keep, but its value is not small. It is a foundation. If you can keep a promise that takes 5 minutes, you can build a life that lasts. If you can keep 1 promise today, then 2 tomorrow, then 3 next week, your confidence begins to grow from proof, not wishful thinking. Confidence built on proof is stable. Confidence built on hope alone is fragile. When your mind knows you have followed through before, it becomes easier to act again. The path opens 1 step at a time. There is a clean and honest way to begin. Choose one promise for the morning, one for the afternoon, and one for the night. Make them simple. Morning, get out of bed when you planned. Afternoon, complete one important task before anything else steals your attention. Night, spend 10 minutes preparing for the next day. These are not heroic actions. They are disciplined actions. They teach structure. They teach self-control. They teach your mind that each part of the day has purpose. The real challenge is not in making the promise. It is in keeping it when your mood shifts. Some mornings feel heavy. Some afternoons feel dull. Some nights feel long. Your emotions will not always support your plans. That is normal. Discipline begins where emotion ends. You do not need to fight your feelings. You simply need to stop letting them rule your choices. Feel tired and still do the small task. Feel distracted and still return to the work. Feel bored and still stay faithful to the promise. In that moment, you are not just doing a task. You are training character. Character grows through repeated action. It is shaped in ordinary moments when nobody is watching. The person you become in private is the person you bring into the world. If you are honest in small things, you become steady in larger things. If you keep your word when it is inconvenient, you become someone who can be trusted. If you learn to finish small tasks, you learn how to finish hard ones. This is how discipline spreads. It starts in a tiny corner of daily life and slowly reaches everything else. There is a strong connection between discipline and peace. Many people think discipline is only about pressure and control. It is not. True discipline creates relief. When you know what needs to be done and you do it, your mind becomes quieter. You stop carrying the stress of unfinished tasks. You stop arguing with yourself. You stop waking up with the same guilt. A disciplined life is not a perfect life, but it is a cleaner life. It has fewer open loops. It has less self-betrayal. It has more order, and order gives peace. Think about the feeling that comes after keeping a promise. There is a calm satisfaction in it, not excitement, not pride in a loud sense. Something deeper. You feel grounded. You know you acted in line with your values. You did not need applause. You did not need a perfect day. You just needed to be faithful. That feeling is important because it becomes a reward in itself. Over time, your brain begins to connect discipline with stability and relief. The habit stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like strength. The easiest promises to break are the ones that seem too small to matter. That is why small promises are also the most important to keep. They expose whether you are serious. Anyone can make a large claim. Anyone can say they will change their life. But real change appears in the details. Did you wake up when you said you would? Did you complete the work before scrolling? Did you avoid the easy excuse? Did you keep your plan after the first hour of discomfort? Those are the questions that matter. One useful habit is to make fewer promises and keep them with full attention. Many people overload their day with intentions. They create long lists and then feel defeated when they cannot do everything. That leads to a pattern of self-criticism. A better way is to choose the few actions that truly matter and protect them. One honest promise kept fully is more valuable than 10 promises abandoned halfway. A simple life often produces stronger results because it allows consistency. If you want discipline, remove confusion. Decide exactly what your promise is. Not "I will get better," that is vague. Say, "I will study for 30 minutes at 7 p.m. Not "I will eat healthier." Say, "I will eat one proper meal with protein and vegetables today." Not "I will be more productive." Say, "I will finish this one task before opening anything else." Clear promises are easier to keep because the mind knows what success looks like. Vague promises invite delay. There is also power in linking a new promise to an existing routine. For example, after brushing your teeth, you may write down the most important task for the day. After lunch, you may walk for 10 minutes. After turning off the main light at night, you may prepare tomorrow's clothes or notebook. This makes discipline less dependent on memory and emotion. It becomes part of the structure of the day. Structure helps you act even when willpower is low. It is also important to expect resistance. The mind often protects comfort. It offers excuses that sound reasonable in the moment. You are tired. You can do it later. One missed day will not matter. You deserve a break. Some of those thoughts are partly true, which is why they are so persuasive. Rest matters. Flexibility matters. But excuses also matter because they can turn into habits. A person who listens to every excuse becomes controlled by impulse. A person who observes excuses without obeying them becomes stronger. You do not need to attack your mind. You need to lead it. Leadership is calm. It does not panic when resistance appears. It simply says, "This was the plan. This is still the plan. Continue." That kind of self-leadership builds maturity. It teaches you that discomfort is not a warning sign to stop. Often discomfort is only the feeling of growth. When you stretch beyond old habits, your mind may complain. That complaint is not always truth. Sometimes it is only the sound of change. One of the most practical ways to build discipline is to track your promises. Use a simple notebook or a calendar. Mark the days you kept your word. Be honest. Do not erase misses. Do not pretend a half-completed task counts as full effort if it did not. The record is not there to shame you. It is there to tell the truth. Progress becomes visible when you can see it. Patterns become clear when you write them down. You will notice what helps and what weakens you. You will learn which hours are strongest and which habits fail first. This kind of tracking also teaches humility. It prevents exaggeration. A person who says, "I have no discipline," may be wrong. They may have some discipline in certain areas and not in others. A person who says, "I always fail," may be ignoring days when they did well. The record shows reality. It reveals both success and weakness. That honesty is useful because improvement begins with truth. You cannot fix what you refuse to see. Discipline also grows through repetition after disappointment. There will be days when you miss the promise. That does not mean the journey is over. What matters most is the response after the mistake. Many people fall once and then decide the whole effort was fake. They say, "I ruined it," and then they stop. That is pride disguised as failure. A mature person does not need to turn a single miss into a collapse. The better response is simple. Notice it, learn from it, return to the promise, keep moving. The goal is not perfection. The goal is reliability. A reliable person can recover. A reliable person does not quit after a poor day. A reliable person understands that discipline is built across seasons, not moments. Some days are easy, some are not. Some weeks feel clear, some feel crowded. The standard remains the same. Keep the promise as often as possible, and when you fail, return quickly. The speed of return matters. The faster you come back, the less damage the miss creates. Daily promises should also be connected to values, not just performance. Ask what kind of person you want to become. Do you want to be honest? Then keep your word. Do you want to be calm? Then protect your mornings. Do you want to be strong? Then do difficult things in small doses every day. Do you want to be dependable? Then finish what you start. When a promise grows out of values, it has meaning. Meaning gives endurance. A task without meaning feels heavy. A task tied to identity feels necessary. There is a quiet dignity in disciplined living. A person who keeps small promises becomes less ruled by chaos. They no longer wake up scattered in the same way. They begin to trust their own direction. They know what matters first. They know how to begin. They know how to return after distraction. This creates momentum. Momentum makes the next action easier. The next action strengthens the next. Soon the day begins to feel different, not because life became easier, but because you became more organized inside. That inner order is worth more than external praise. People may notice results later, but the real victory happens long before then. It happens when you do the work nobody else sees. It happens when you close the tab. It happens when you stand up and start. It happens when you choose action over delay. These moments may look small, but they are building a mind that can carry greater responsibility. A future filled with success usually begins in a present filled with small, faithful acts. Think about what happens when a person keeps many tiny promises for a long time. They become harder to shake. They are less controlled by mood. They are less afraid of hard work. They have evidence that effort works. They have proof that change is possible. This is powerful because many people fail not from lack of talent, but from lack of trust in themselves. Small promises rebuild that trust. They remind you that you can direct your own actions. You can choose. You can follow through. You can improve. The first few weeks matter a great deal. At the start, the work may feel awkward. You may doubt it. You may wonder whether such small steps can really matter. Stay with it. The beginning often feels too simple to be important. That is why many people dismiss it. They want something intense, because intensity feels impressive. But a life is not changed by what looks impressive. It is changed by what is repeated. Keep the small promise long enough, and it becomes part of your identity. It stops being an effort and starts being a standard. There is also wisdom in making the promise so clear that it leaves no room for debate. For example, "I will write for 20 minutes after breakfast" is clearer than "I will try to write more." "I will put my phone in another room while I study" is clearer than "I will use my phone less." "I will go to bed at 10:30" is clearer than "I will sleep earlier." Clear promises reduce negotiation. The mind wastes less energy arguing with itself. That energy can then go into action. One of the strongest benefits of small promises is that they teach delayed reward. Modern life encourages instant comfort. Many things are designed to give pleasure quickly and ask nothing in return. Discipline teaches the opposite. It teaches that real rewards often come after effort, patience, and repetition. You do not always feel the benefit immediately, but as days pass, you begin to notice more strength, more clarity, more control, and more confidence. That delayed reward trains maturity. It helps you live for something deeper than the next moment. Discipline, through small promises, also protects you from becoming a slave to your environment. Without discipline, every noise can pull you away. Every message can interrupt you. Every emotional wave can change your direction. With discipline, you become less fragile. You still live in the real world with all its demands, but you are not thrown around by every detail. You learn to act from intention instead of impulse. That shift alone can change the quality of your entire life. There will be times when the world feels heavy. Responsibilities will stack up. People will ask for more than you feel ready to give. Energy will run low. In those moments, do not look for a grand solution first. Return to the small promise. Keep the next right step simple. Drink water. Clean the space. Finish the page. Make the call. Take the walk. Begin where you are. A disciplined life does not mean every day feels easy. It means you know how to keep moving even when life is not easy. That is the deeper meaning of winning in life. It is not only about results, it is about becoming the kind of person who can be counted on. Counted on by others, yes, but first counted on by yourself. A person who keeps small promises becomes steady. A steady person can build. A steady person can recover. A steady person can grow. A steady person can handle more because they have learned to handle themselves. So start now, but start simply. Choose one promise that is small enough to keep today and important enough to matter. Do it with care. Do it without drama. Do it without waiting for perfect feelings. Then keep it again tomorrow. Then again after that. Let your life change by repetition. Let your identity grow through proof. Let your confidence come from action. Let discipline be built not in one loud moment, but in many quiet ones. This is how a stronger life is made, not by chasing a burst of inspiration, but by honoring daily promises with patience and honesty, not by demanding perfection, but by returning quickly after mistakes, not by speaking about change, but by living it in small ways every day. Keep the promise, keep it simple, keep it real, keep it enough times, and it will begin to shape the person you are becoming. And that person will not need to beg for strength. That person will have earned it. Chapter 2. Strength and Resilience. By facing discomfort and staying consistent. Strength grows fastest when you stay present in the middle of discomfort and refuse to quit. Most people want a stronger life but avoid the very situations that create strength. They want calm without pressure, confidence without challenge, progress without resistance. But a life that is easy all the time does not prepare you for anything difficult. Resilience is built in the moments when you feel tired, uncomfortable, uncertain, and still decide to continue. It is built when your body wants rest, but your values ask for effort. It is built when your mind complains, and you answer with action anyway. Discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. In many cases, it is a sign that you are growing into someone stronger than before. The problem is that people often treat discomfort like danger. The moment something feels hard, they stop. The moment they feel awkward, they retreat. The moment they meet resistance, they assume it means they are not ready. But the truth is that growth rarely feels smooth while it is happening. It feels unfamiliar. It feels tense. It feels demanding. That feeling does not mean you are failing. It often means you are leaving an old version of yourself behind. To strengthen resilience, you have to stop expecting life to protect your comfort at every step. Life will not always be gentle. Plans will be interrupted. People will disappoint you. Results will take longer than you want. Some mornings will feel heavy. Some days will feel full of pressure. Some seasons will demand more patience than you thought you had. You cannot control all of that. What you can control is how you respond. Resilient people are not people who never struggle. They are people who continue to act with steadiness while struggling. There is a quiet power in staying consistent when things feel uncomfortable. Consistency means you do not let one hard day erase your progress. It means you keep the habit alive even when motivation drops. It means you return to your routine after a setback instead of waiting for a perfect mood. This is where many people lose momentum. They think consistency means doing everything perfectly. It does not. Consistency means showing up often enough that your effort becomes dependable. It means you keep moving even if your pace changes. Think about a person training their body. Progress does not come from one intense workout. It comes from repeated effort over time. The body adapts because the challenge returns again and again. The same rule applies to the mind. Resilience grows when you repeatedly face small discomforts and do not run from them. A difficult conversation, a task you have delayed, a workout you do not feel like starting, a habit you keep even when it is boring. These are the moments that strengthen your inner life. Each one teaches you that discomfort can be handled. One of the most useful habits you can develop is to stay a little longer when you want to escape too soon. Not forever, just long enough to build tolerance. Stay with the difficult task for 5 more minutes. Stay calm for 1 more breath before reacting. Stay in the conversation long enough to understand what is really being said. Stay with your plan long enough to give it a fair chance. These small moments matter because they train your nervous system to stop panicking at the first sign of pressure. You learn that discomfort rises and falls. It does not last forever. It helps to understand that discomfort comes in many forms. Sometimes it is physical. Sometimes it is emotional. Sometimes it is mental. Sometimes it is the discomfort of boredom. Sometimes it is the discomfort of being seen. Sometimes it is the discomfort of being new at something. Each one can teach resilience if you do not immediately turn away. You can learn from a hard workout. You can learn from an awkward silence. You can learn from an unfinished project. You can learn from waiting without control. Every form of discomfort carries a lesson about patience, endurance, and self-command. A resilient person does not try to control every feeling before taking action. They know feelings shift. They know fear can speak loudly and still be wrong. They know the body may resist before it adapts. They know the mind often complains before it cooperates. So they do not wait to feel strong before acting. They act, and through that action, strength develops. This order matters. Action first, strength follows. Waiting for strength first often keeps a person stuck. Consistency becomes easier when you stop asking every day to feel comfortable. A better question is whether the action matters. Does this habit help your future? Does this choice support the person you want to become? Does this effort keep your life moving in the right direction? If the answer is yes, then discomfort is not a reason to stop. It is simply part of the process. Many important things in life demand repeated effort before they become natural. Learning, healing, building trust, developing focus, improving health, and growing patience all require time. None of them happen one clean step. A powerful way to build resilience is to create a habit of finishing. When a task becomes difficult, complete one more part. When the day feels long, complete one more useful action. When the mind feels restless, stay with one more focused block of time. Finishing teaches the brain that discomfort does not get the final word. It teaches you to close loops instead of leaving everything open. A finished task creates a small victory. A small victory builds confidence. Confidence makes the next hard moment easier to face. You also need to learn the difference between discomfort that builds you and harm that breaks you. Resilience is not about ignoring clear warning signs. It is not about forcing yourself into unhealthy conditions or denying serious problems. It is about understanding that ordinary challenge, effort, and tension are not enemies. They are part of a meaningful life. When a task stretches you but does not damage you, stay with it. When a situation is clearly unsafe or harmful, step back and respond wisely. Wisdom and resilience belong together. The strongest people are often not the loudest. They are usually the ones who have learned how to remain steady when life is not steady. They do not panic at every setback. They do not collapse under every delay. They do not need comfort before they can continue. They have practiced staying grounded in hard moments. That practice gives them calm. Calm gives them better judgment. Better judgment gives them better choices. This is how resilience spreads into every area of life. When discomfort arrives, one useful response is to slow down your inner dialogue. Do not let the mind build a story that is bigger than the moment. A difficult hour is not a ruined life. A bad mood is not a permanent identity. A hard week is not proof that you cannot improve. Most suffering grows when the mind turns one problem into a final verdict. Resilient thinking stays closer to reality. It says, "This is hard, but it is manageable. This is uncomfortable, but it will pass. This is demanding, but I can continue." Another useful practice is to remember what your discomfort is teaching you. If a task feels awkward, you may be learning a new skill. If you feel resistance, you may be developing discipline. If you feel exposed, you may be learning courage. If you feel tired, you may need rest and better structure, not surrender. If you feel emotional pressure, you may need to breathe, reset, and keep going with a calmer mind. Every difficult moment can become a lesson when you stop treating it as a threat. Consistency is especially important after a setback. People often believe resilience means never falling apart. In real life, resilience often means returning after you have been shaken. You may lose focus for a day, you may get distracted, you may feel behind. What matters is the return. Come back to your habits. Come back to your standards. Come back to the work. The return is where character becomes visible. It shows that your identity is not controlled by one weak moment. You build trust in yourself each time you keep going under pressure. That trust becomes a quiet source of power. When the next challenge arrives, you do not start from zero. You start with memory. You remember that you have handled hard things before. You remember that the feeling of resistance was not the end of the road. You remember that consistency carried you through. This memory matters because it changes your response. You stop seeing discomfort as a wall and begin to see it as a passage. There is dignity in continuing. There is strength in showing up when it would be easier to hide. There is wisdom in staying calm when others rush into panic. There is growth in doing the next right thing without needing every part of the future to be clear. Resilience is not built by fantasy. It is built by repeated contact with reality. Life is hard at times. That is not a reason to give up. It is a reason to become more grounded. So when discomfort comes, do not waste energy arguing with it. Notice it. Breathe through it. Stay with the task. Keep your schedule. Hold your standards. Do the work with patience. Do the work with honesty. Do the work even when your mind asks for escape. Every time you remain steady, you strengthen something deeper than mood. You strengthen your ability to endure. You strengthen your confidence in your own character. You strengthen the part of you that knows how to keep moving. And that is how a stronger life is made. Not by avoiding pressure, but by learning how to stand inside it without losing yourself. Not by waiting for easy days, but by becoming someone who can work through hard ones. Not by chasing comfort, but by choosing consistency until discomfort loses its power to control you. Stay with the work. Stay with the path. Stay with the practice. The more you do, the more resilient you become. Chapter 3. Master focus by removing distractions and protecting your time. Focus changes everything. When you decide that your time is valuable and your attention is not for sale, a distracted mind cannot build a strong life. It moves from one thing to another without depth. It starts many tasks and finishes too few. It spends hours near work, but never fully enters it. It checks messages, opens one more tab, listens to one more alert, and slowly loses the power to think clearly. This is how time gets stolen, not all at once, little by little. And most people do not notice it until the day feels empty and the results feel small. Focus is one of the strongest forms of self-respect. When you protect your attention, you protect your future. When you let every interruption enter your day, you hand your life over to whatever is loudest. A focused person does not need a perfect environment. They create a useful one. They do not wait for silence to appear. They build silence where they can. They do not wait for the world to become calm. They make a choice to stay calm inside it. The first step in mastering focus is to understand that distractions are not innocent. Some distractions are obvious: a phone, social media, random videos, messages that do not matter. Other distractions are quieter: worry, overthinking, constantly checking progress, jumping between tasks because one feels hard, saying yes to too many things. Even a busy mind can become a distracted mind. That is why focus must be protected on both the outside and the inside. If you want to think clearly, you must remove what pulls your mind apart. Keep the phone away when you work. Turn off alerts that are not necessary. Close the tabs you do not need. Put one task in front of you and leave it there. These actions may seem small, but they change the quality of your day. A mind that keeps switching loses energy with every switch. A mind that stays in one place builds strength. It learns how to go deep instead of staying shallow. Many people believe they are bad at focus when the real problem is that their environment is full of interruptions. A distracted environment creates a distracted mind. If your space is messy, your attention often becomes messy too. If your device is always open to noise, your mind will keep reacting to noise. So begin with the space around you. Clean the desk. Put away objects that do not belong. Keep only what helps the task. This is not about being perfect. It is about making focus easier to practice. Time must also be treated with care. Time is not something that waits patiently while you decide what matters. It moves whether you use it well or not. That is why protecting your time is a serious responsibility. A person who guards their time guards their life. Every hour has a direction. Every day can be shaped by the way you use your attention. If you spend your best hours on low-value noise, the important work gets the leftovers. That is not a life of direction. That is a life of reaction. One of the most practical ways to protect your time is to decide your priority before the day begins. Do not wake up and let the world decide for you. Write down the 1 or 2 tasks that matter most. Do them before distraction has a chance to take over. When you handle the important work first, you reclaim control. You stop living like every small request deserves equal weight. You begin to understand that your time belongs to your purpose, not to every demand that appears. A focused life also requires boundaries. Some people do not lose focus because they are weak. They lose focus because they have no clear limits. They answer every message immediately. They let every conversation stretch too far. They give their best energy to things that do not deserve it. Learning to say no is part of protecting your time. Saying no to the unnecessary is often how you say yes to the meaningful. This does not make you cold. It makes you deliberate. there is also a strong connection between focus and honesty. To focus well, you must be honest about what matters and what does not. Many people tell themselves they are busy when they are actually scattered. Busy is not always productive. A person can feel occupied all day and still move nowhere important. Honest focus asks one simple question: is this helping me build the life I say I want? If the answer is no, then it may need to be reduced or removed. Attention is fragile. It can be pulled apart by a single thought if you allow it. That is why focus is not only about removing outer noise. It is also about training your mind to return. Your attention will wander. That is normal. The skill is not to never drift. The skill is to notice the drift and come back without drama, over and over again. Return to the sentence, return to the task, return to the reading, return to the work. Every return is a small act of discipline. One helpful practice is to work in simple blocks of time. Set a clear period and give that period to one task. Do not ask yourself to do everything at once. Ask yourself to do this one thing well for a set amount of time. When the block ends, rest for a moment, then begin again if needed. This makes focus less overwhelming. It gives the mind a shape. It also trains endurance, because sustained attention is a skill that grows with use. Another important part of focus is learning how to handle boredom. Many distractions are simply attempts to escape boredom. The task is not always exciting. The work may feel slow. The progress may be quiet. That is fine. Not every useful thing feels thrilling. In fact, many important things in life are repeated often and noticed slowly. The person who can remain present through ordinary work gains an advantage. They are not always chasing stimulation. They can stay with what matters long enough to make it useful. Protecting your time also means being careful with people who drain your energy without adding value. Some conversations help you grow. Others leave you scattered. Some relationships support your purpose. Others keep you in constant reaction. You do not need to be rude. You do not need to close your heart. But you do need to be wise. Not every invitation deserves your full attention. Not every opinion needs your response. Not every problem needs your immediate presence. Mature focus knows when to engage and when to step back. A clear mind is a valuable mind. When attention is not divided, it becomes sharper. Decisions become better. Work becomes cleaner. You begin to notice patterns you used to miss. You start finishing things. You stop feeling as if your day disappeared without meaning. This is what happens when you protect your time. Your life begins to feel owned again, not controlled by every interruption, not pulled apart by every moment, owned by your purpose. It helps to remember that focus is not only about doing more, it is about doing what matters. Some people fill their days with activity, but never move toward the life they want. They are active but not focused. They are moving but not building. Focus gives direction to effort. It prevents wasted energy. It helps you see the difference between urgency and importance. Not every task that feels urgent deserves your attention. Some things are loud, others are valuable. Focus helps you choose value. If you struggle with attention, do not speak to yourself with harshness. Speak with firmness and clarity. Tell yourself the truth. You are not broken. You are distracted. That can change. You are not powerless. You can build better habits around attention. You can create a cleaner routine. You can choose a better start to the day. You can practice finishing before switching. You can become more deliberate with your time. Improvement begins when you stop accepting distraction as your normal state. The discipline of focus grows through repetition. Every time you choose the task over the impulse, the habit grows stronger. Every time you silence one unnecessary alert, you reclaim a little more of your mind. Every time you refuse to switch too early, you train patience. These choices may seem small in the moment, but they shape the kind of person you become. A person with focus is less shaken by noise. They know where they are going. They know how to stay with the work long enough for it to matter. Do not wait for a perfect day to begin. Begin with the day you have. Remove one distraction. Protect 1 hour. Finish one task without interruption. Keep your mind on what matters for longer than you did yesterday. That is how focus is built. Not in a single dramatic act, but in steady decisions repeated with care. Your attention is one of your greatest resources. Guard it well, use it well, and your life will begin to reflect the difference. Chapter 4. Train patience by trusting progress and repeating good habits. Your life changes the moment you stop demanding immediate results and start respecting the slow process that builds lasting strength. Patience is one of the rare qualities people admire but struggle to practice. Most people want improvement, but they want it quickly. They want results before repetition. They want growth without waiting. They want change before the habits have had time to work. And when progress moves slowly, frustration enters, doubt enters. The mind begins asking whether the effort is worth it. This is where many people stop. Not because they lacked ability, but because they lacked patience. Patience is not passive. It is not sitting still and hoping life improves on its own. Real patience is active. It is continuing to do the right things while results remain invisible. It is trusting that repeated effort matters even when evidence appears slowly. It is staying loyal to good habits before they reward you. That kind of patience requires strength because it asks you to continue without constant proof. Many people underestimate how long meaningful change takes. They expect weeks to undo years of neglect. They expect a short burst of effort to replace habits built over decades, but deep change moves differently. A stronger body takes time. A calmer mind takes time. Better thinking takes time. Trust takes time. Discipline takes time. Almost everything valuable asks for repeated action before visible reward appears. This truth can feel uncomfortable because modern life encourages speed. Answers arrive quickly. Entertainment arrives instantly. Messages appear in seconds. Over time, people become used to immediate responses. Then they expect the same pace from personal growth. But your character does not develop overnight. Your habits do not transform in one dramatic moment. Inner strength grows through ordinary actions, repeated long after excitement disappears. A patient person understands something important. They understand that slow progress is still progress. Improvement does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it appears quietly. You react with more calm than before. You recover faster from disappointment. You complete tasks with less resistance. You speak with more control. You keep your promises more often. These changes may seem small, but they are signs that your efforts are working. One reason people abandon good habits is because they expect motivation to carry them. Motivation rises and falls. Some mornings feel full of energy, other mornings feel empty. If your habits depend only on enthusiasm, consistency becomes difficult. Patience teaches another way. It teaches you to continue because the habit matters, not because the feeling is strong. You begin to act from commitment instead of emotion. There is something powerful about repeating a useful habit when nobody notices. Reading daily without praise, exercising without immediate transformation, saving money without dramatic results, practicing a skill before anyone sees improvement. These quiet repetitions shape identity. You become the person who follows through. You become the person who trusts the process enough to continue. Trusting progress does not mean ignoring reality. It means recognizing that growth often happens beneath the surface, before it becomes visible. Think about moments in your own life when change seemed slow, then suddenly became obvious. Many improvements work this way. The effort gathers over time. Then one day you notice that something difficult has become easier, something heavy feels lighter. Something unfamiliar feels natural. This is why impatience can be dangerous. Impatience often convinces people to quit too early. They stop because they cannot see the full result yet. They abandon routines that were beginning to work. They return to old patterns because waiting feels uncomfortable. The tragedy is not always failure. Sometimes the tragedy is stopping before growth had time to appear. Good habits create change through accumulation. One healthy meal may not transform your body. One focused hour may not change your career, One calm response may not repair every relationship, but repeated actions shape outcomes. Small choices gather strength over weeks, months, and years. Life often reflects what you repeat more than what you occasionally attempt. Patience also changes your relationship with setbacks. Without patience, setbacks feel permanent. A missed day feels like collapse. A mistake feels like proof of failure. But patient thinking sees setbacks differently. It understands that one difficult moment does not erase months of effort. It sees errors as information rather than final judgment. This perspective protects momentum. You need patience not only with goals but also with yourself. Growth can expose weaknesses you did not expect. You may notice habits that need changing. You may realize certain fears still control your decisions. You may discover areas where your discipline is weaker than you believed. This awareness can feel uncomfortable, but awareness is useful. It gives direction. Be patient enough to improve without demanding perfection. Some people become harsh with themselves when progress slows. They criticize every mistake. They compare their timeline to others. They believe they should already be further ahead. This mindset creates unnecessary pressure. Pressure without wisdom often leads to exhaustion. A better approach is firmness with compassion. Hold yourself accountable, but do not destroy your spirit in the process. Repeating good habits requires accepting ordinary days. Not every day feels meaningful. Some days feel repetitive. You wake up and do the same useful actions again. The mind may ask whether these routines matter. They do. The ordinary days are often where transformation happens. Repetition builds familiarity. Familiarity reduces resistance. Over time, actions that once required effort become part of who you are. One of the greatest mistakes is waiting until everything feels perfect before continuing. Conditions rarely become perfect. Life stays unpredictable. Responsibilities appear. Unexpected problems arrive. A patient person does not require ideal circumstances to continue. They adapt. They adjust. They keep useful habits alive even during difficult seasons. This does not mean pushing endlessly without rest. Patience includes knowing when recovery is needed. Rest can support growth when used wisely. The problem appears when rest becomes avoidance. Honest rest restores energy. Avoidance delays progress. Learning the difference requires self-awareness. There is wisdom in asking different questions. Instead of asking, "Why am I not there yet?" ask, "Am I becoming more consistent?" Instead of asking, "Why is this taking so long?" ask, "What am I learning during this process?" These questions shift attention toward growth rather than impatience. The person who trusts progress develops stability. Their mood becomes less dependent on immediate results. They stop needing constant validation. They continue because they believe repeated effort matters. This creates emotional strength. Their commitment survives longer because it is rooted in values instead of temporary excitement. Patience is especially important during periods when nothing seems to change. Those periods test character. They ask whether you will continue without visible reward. They reveal whether your habits are genuine or only dependent on quick success. Many important victories begin during quiet seasons where progress feels slow. Think about building trust with another person. Trust develops through repeated honesty over time. It grows through reliability. Your relationship with yourself follows similar rules. When you maintain useful habits consistently, you begin trusting your own ability to continue. That trust becomes powerful. It reduces hesitation. It increases confidence. Not confidence built on fantasy, but confidence built on evidence. Good habits eventually reduce decision fatigue. Actions become automatic. You no longer debate every choice. The person who exercises regularly spends less energy deciding whether to begin. The person who protects sleep treats rest as a standard. The person who reads daily sees learning as normal. Repetition creates efficiency. The slow path often produces deeper results because it builds foundations. Quick changes can disappear quickly. Lasting changes usually involve identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to improve. and begin seeing yourself as someone who lives differently. This shift matters because identity supports consistency. Patience also teaches humility. It reminds you that meaningful things cannot always be rushed. Some lessons require experience, some strengths require endurance. Some forms of wisdom appear only after repeated effort through difficult periods. Humility keeps you open to learning. Protect your habits during moments of discouragement. Those moments tempt people to abandon what helps them most. When progress feels distant, continue the routine. Drink the water, take the walk, read the pages, complete the work, return to the basics. Simple actions repeated faithfully often carry people through uncertain periods. A patient mind becomes less desperate. Desperation creates rushed decisions. It seeks shortcuts. It abandons process. Patience creates steadiness. Steadiness improves judgment. Better judgment protects long-term growth. Your future depends less on dramatic moments and more on repeated choices. The small habits performed consistently become part of your story. The effort may feel unnoticed now. Continue anyway. The reward is often delayed, but delayed does not mean denied. Years from now, you may look back and realize your life changed during ordinary days when you chose patience instead of frustration. When you repeated useful habits despite boredom. When you trusted progress before proof appeared. Those moments may have seemed insignificant at the time, yet they shaped who you became. The person who wins in life is not always the fastest. Often they are the one who remained steady while others stopped. They kept showing up. They kept improving quietly. They kept trusting that repeated effort matters. Their strength was not built in one extraordinary day. It was built through patience carried across many ordinary ones. So continue. Continue when growth feels slow. Continue when results remain hidden. Continue when repetition feels unremarkable. Continue because each good habit is placing another stone beneath your future. Continue because patience is not weakness. It is disciplined belief in the value of consistent action. Continue long enough, and one day the person you become will thank you for refusing to quit before the process had time to work. Chapter 5. Take responsibility for choices and stop making excuses. Your life begins to change the moment you stop blaming circumstances and start owning the choices that shape your future. Responsibility is heavy for people who avoid it, but it becomes a source of strength for those who accept it. Many spend years waiting for better conditions, better support, better timing, or different people. They believe progress will arrive when life becomes easier. Meanwhile, time keeps moving. Opportunities pass. Habits become stronger, patterns repeat. One day they look back and wonder why nothing changed. The painful answer is often simple. They waited for something outside themselves to do the work that only they could do. Taking responsibility does not mean blaming yourself for every hardship. Life brings unfair situations. Some struggles arrive without warning. Some burdens are not chosen. Responsibility is not about carrying guilt for everything. It is about asking one important question no matter what happens. What can I control now? That question changes everything because it moves your attention from helplessness toward action. Excuses often sound reasonable. That is why they are dangerous. They rarely arrive as obvious lies. They appear as explanations that protect comfort. You are too tired, you missed your chance. Other people have advantages you do not have. The timing is wrong. You will begin when motivation returns. These thoughts can feel true in the moment. Some contain real challenges. But when explanations become permanent hiding places, growth stops. An excuse has one purpose. It creates temporary relief from responsibility. It removes pressure for a moment. But relief gained through avoidance comes with a cost. Over time, excuses weaken self-trust. Every avoided action sends a message to yourself that discomfort controls your choices. Repeated often enough, this becomes a habit. Responsibility works differently. Responsibility says the situation may not be ideal, but there is still something useful I can do. It does not wait for perfect conditions. It begins where reality exists. It asks what action is possible today. That mindset builds momentum because it focuses on movement rather than complaint. Many people underestimate the influence of daily decisions. A life rarely changes through one dramatic event alone. More often, direction is shaped by repeated choices: what you eat, how you spend free time, whether you complete difficult tasks or postpone them, whether you tell the truth or avoid it, whether you continue learning or remain passive. Small choices gather weight. They slowly become patterns. Patterns become outcomes. This is why responsibility matters. It reminds you that your actions have consequences even when those consequences arrive later. Some results appear quickly, others take years. But choices rarely disappear without effect. They leave traces in your habits, health, relationships, and mindset. Taking ownership can feel uncomfortable because it removes convenient stories. It asks you to examine where your own behavior contributed to problems. This requires honesty. Honest reflection is difficult because the mind prefers protecting identity. It prefers believing external factors explain everything. Yet growth begins where honesty enters. You may need to admit that distractions consume too much time. You may realize fear-shaped, important decisions. You may discover inconsistency delayed progress. These realizations are not reasons for shame. They are opportunities. Awareness creates possibility. You cannot improve what remains hidden. Strong people are not those who avoid mistakes. Strong people acknowledge mistakes and respond wisely. They do not waste energy defending every poor decision. They learn, they adjust, they continue. This flexibility protects growth because pride often keeps people trapped in old patterns. Responsibility also transforms relationships. Imagine speaking with someone who blames others for every disappointment. Every conflict becomes someone else's fault. Every setback becomes proof of unfair treatment. Over time, trust weakens because accountability disappears. Compare that with someone willing to say, "I handled that poorly," or "I need to improve here." Ownership creates respect. It signals maturity. The ability to accept responsibility without collapsing into self-criticism is powerful. Some people avoid ownership because they fear guilt. They believe admitting mistakes means attacking their worth. But responsibility is not self-destruction, it is self-leadership. A leader notices problems and responds. They do not spend all their energy punishing themselves. Excuses often hide deeper fears: fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of effort, fear of discovering limits. If you never fully try, excuses protect your identity. You can always say circumstances prevented success. But this protection comes at a price. Avoidance preserves comfort while reducing possibility. Facing responsibility means risking discomfort. You may need to attempt things without certainty. You may need to confront weaknesses directly. You may need to stop waiting for confidence before acting. This process feels vulnerable because it removes hiding places. Yet vulnerability used wisely creates growth. One practical way to strengthen responsibility is through language. Pay attention to how you speak about your life. Notice phrases that remove ownership. "I had no choice. I could not help it. This always happens to me." Sometimes circumstances truly limit options, but often language reveals mindset. Replace helpless expressions with honest ownership. "I chose differently than I should have. I avoided the task. I need a better system." These statements feel uncomfortable at first because they increase responsibility. They also increase power because they point toward action. Responsibility requires examining habits without excuses. If health matters, observe daily behaviors honestly. If relationships matter, evaluate how you communicate. If progress matters, review how time is used. Avoid dramatic judgment. Focus on accurate observation. Facts help improvement more than emotional reactions. There is freedom in ownership. This may sound surprising because responsibility appears heavy, yet blaming external forces for everything creates dependence. If all change depends on others, your future feels uncertain. Responsibility returns influence to your own actions. Even small influence matters. Small influence practiced consistently grows stronger. People often admire disciplined individuals. without noticing what discipline rests upon. Beneath discipline is ownership. A disciplined person understands their choices matter. They stop negotiating endlessly with obligations. They act because they accept responsibility for outcomes. This does not mean controlling everything. Wisdom recognizes limits. Some events remain beyond influence. Responsibility does not demand impossible control. It asks for effort within your reach. Distinguishing between what you can change and what you cannot protects peace. Another trap appears when people use past experiences as permanent explanations. Painful history can shape behavior. Difficult circumstances leave marks. Acknowledging these realities matters, but explanation should not become prisons. Your past may explain certain patterns, yet explanation differs from permission to remain stuck forever. Growth asks difficult questions. What if your future does not need to repeat your history? What if responsibility means deciding old patterns end with you? These questions require courage because change disrupts familiarity. Excuses also appear in subtle forms. Waiting until you know enough, waiting until fear disappears, waiting until confidence arrives. Preparation matters, but endless preparation can hide avoidance. At some point, responsibility means beginning before certainty feels complete. Action reveals truths that thinking alone cannot provide. You learn through doing. You discover strengths and weaknesses through experience. Responsibility moves ideas into reality. Some days ownership feels exhausting. You may want someone else to decide. You may wish progress required less effort. During those moments, remember that avoiding responsibility does not remove consequences. Delayed choices still create outcomes. Ignored problems often grow. Facing reality early usually costs less than postponing it. A responsible life becomes more stable because decisions align with values more often. Stability does not mean perfection. Mistakes continue. Challenges remain. The difference is response. Ownership creates faster adjustment. Faster adjustment protects momentum. There is dignity in saying, I will handle what belongs to me. Not because handling everything is possible, but because refusing responsibility weakens character over time. Character grows through repeated acts of ownership. You become stronger each time you stop searching for someone to blame and begin searching for the next useful action. Strength appears when excuses lose influence. Strength appears when honesty replaces avoidance. Strength appears when choices reflect intention rather than impulse. One day you may realize your life changed, not through a dramatic breakthrough, but through quieter moments. Moments when you accepted responsibility instead of making explanations. Moments when you corrected mistakes rather than defending them. Moments when you acted despite discomfort. These moments reshape identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone waiting for change and begin seeing yourself as someone creating change. That shift is significant because identity influences behavior. Behavior influences outcomes. Responsibility is not punishment. It is permission to participate fully in your own growth. It allows you to become an active force in shaping your future rather than a passive observer. So look directly at your choices. Examine habits without fear. Notice excuses without obeying them. Accept what belongs to you and release what does not. Move toward honesty even when it feels uncomfortable. Build a life where your actions reflect your values more often than your moods. Because in the end, excuses may protect comfort for a while, but responsibility builds a person capable of carrying more, becoming more, and creating a future guided by intention instead of avoidance. Chapter 6. Commit to daily growth and measure your personal progress. The person you become in 5 years is being built by what you improve today and what you ignore today. Growth is not an event. It is not something that arrives suddenly and changes everything overnight. Real growth is quieter than most people expect. It happens in the decisions nobody celebrates. It develops in ordinary mornings, difficult afternoons, and evenings when you choose learning instead of comfort. Growth builds slowly. Then one day you notice your thinking has changed, your reactions have changed, and your standards have changed. The transformation seems sudden from the outside, but it was built through many unnoticed moments. Many people say they want a better life, yet few commit to daily improvement with consistency. Wanting change and building change are different things. Desire alone does not create progress. Progress comes from repeated actions guided by awareness. If you improve slightly every day, those improvements gather. If you neglect growth repeatedly, that neglect also gathers. Time strengthens whatever patterns you practice. Daily growth requires intention. Without intention, people often drift. Days become automatic. Habits repeat without examination. Months pass with little reflection. Then frustration appears because life feels unchanged. But growth rarely happens by accident. It requires conscious participation. One of the most useful questions you can ask yourself is simple. What am I becoming through the way I live today? Not what do I hope to become someday, not what do I imagine for the future. What am I becoming right now through repeated choices? Your routines answer this question more honestly than your ambitions. Commitment to growth begins with accepting an uncomfortable truth. Improvement demands effort even when no immediate reward appears. Reading useful ideas may not change your thinking in one day. Learning a skill may feel slow at first. Practicing patience may seem invisible. Yet invisible work often creates visible outcomes later. The challenge is that many people stop because progress appears too small. They dismiss tiny improvements because dramatic change feels more exciting. But lasting growth often comes from accumulation. One extra page read, one healthier choice, one honest reflection, one difficult conversation handled better than before. These actions may seem ordinary, yet they shape direction. A person committed to growth becomes curious about themselves. They observe patterns instead of avoiding them. They notice where energy disappears. They pay attention to habits that help and habits that weaken. Observation creates awareness. Awareness creates options. You cannot improve what you refuse to examine. This is why measuring progress matters. Measurement is not about becoming obsessed with perfection. It is about seeing reality clearly. Reality helps growth because it removes illusion. Many people believe they are trying hard while repeating ineffective patterns. Measurement reveals whether effort aligns with results. Are your habits moving you toward your values or away from them? Are your routines strengthening you or exhausting you? Honest tracking answers questions that emotions often distort. Progress does not always need complex systems. Sometimes simple reflection works better. Ask yourself at the end of a day, what did I do well? What needs adjustment? What distracted me? What strengthened me? These questions encourage awareness without judgment. Growth supported by awareness becomes sustainable because it remains connected to truth. You stop relying only on mood. You start noticing patterns over time. Comparison often interferes with personal progress. People measure themselves against others and become discouraged. They see someone further ahead and interpret that distance as failure, but comparison rarely tells the full story. Different histories create different starting points. Different circumstances create different timelines. Your progress deserves attention independent of someone else's path. A better question is whether you are improving relative to your previous self. Are you handling stress with more calm? Are you keeping commitments more consistently? Are you learning faster from mistakes? These forms of growth matter even if nobody notices immediately. Measuring progress also requires patience because meaningful development rarely follows a straight line. Some periods move quickly. Others feel slow. Certain weeks bring visible improvement. Other weeks feel uncertain. Uneven progress does not mean absence of progress. Think about learning something difficult. Early stages often involve confusion. Mistakes happen repeatedly. Frustration appears. Yet confusion sometimes indicates learning rather than failure. Growth can feel awkward before it feels natural. This is why emotional reactions should not become your only measurement. Feeling behind does not always mean you are behind. Feeling uncertain does not always mean you are failing. Facts matter more than temporary emotions. One practical approach involves keeping evidence of growth. Write observations, record lessons learned, notice completed habits, review previous challenges, and compare your current responses. Evidence protects perspective during discouraging periods. Without evidence, the mind sometimes forgets progress and focuses only on remaining distance. Evidence reminds you how far you have already traveled. Daily growth also requires humility. Humility allows correction without defensiveness. It accepts that improvement remains possible. A person convinced they already know enough often stops growing. Openness keeps development alive. There is strength in admitting areas needing work. Strength appears in saying, "I need better habits here," or "My reactions in this situation require improvement." Honest evaluation creates possibility. Commitment to growth changes how you experience mistakes. Instead of seeing mistakes as permanent judgments, you begin seeing them as information. Information helps adjustment. Adjustment improves future choices. This mindset reduces fear because mistakes lose some power. They remain uncomfortable, yet they become useful. Learning increases when defensiveness decreases. Growth also requires protecting your environment. Constant negativity weakens motivation. Endless distraction reduces reflection. Surroundings influence direction more than people often realize. Choose inputs carefully. Ideas repeated frequently shape thinking. Pay attention to what fills your mind daily. Conversations, content, habits, expectations. Inputs eventually become internal patterns. The person committed to improvement treats learning as ongoing. They do not believe growth ends after reaching certain goals. Achievement without continued learning can become stagnation. A developing mindset remains curious. It asks questions, it seeks understanding, it adapts when evidence changes. Flexibility supports long-term growth because rigid thinking resists necessary adjustments. You may not notice daily growth while living through it. Improvement can feel ordinary from inside the process. Yet ordinary improvements repeated consistently create extraordinary shifts over time. Think about the difference between a person who spends years learning, reflecting, correcting, and practicing useful habits versus someone who remains unchanged by repetition. Time affects both people. The difference in direction. Direct matters more than speed. Fast movement toward harmful habits still creates damage. Slow movement toward wisdom creates strength. Daily choices determine direction. Measure what truly matters, not only external achievements. Observe character, observe reliability, observe emotional control, observe integrity. External success without inner development often creates instability. Inner growth strengthens everything built upon it. Decisions improve, relationships improve, responses improve. Confidence becomes more grounded because it rests on evidence rather than appearance. Commitment means continuing even when enthusiasm fades. Enthusiasm helps, but consistency matters more. Many people begin with excitement. Fewer continue through ordinary days. Ordinary days deserve respect because they hold most of life. Growth built only during extraordinary moments remains fragile. Growth practiced during normal routines becomes durable. One useful principle is to focus on becoming 1% better in meaningful ways, not perfection, not dramatic transformation overnight, small honest improvements. The accumulation matters. Imagine carrying this mindset for years, choosing reflection over avoidance, measuring progress instead of guessing, correcting patterns before they become permanent, continuing to learn even after success appears. This approach changes identity. Eventually, growth stops feeling like a task and becomes part of how you live. Improvement becomes natural because awareness becomes regular. Your future self is being shaped quietly by today's standards. Every repeated choice leaves traces. Every habit teaches something. Every response reinforces patterns. So commit fully to daily growth. Treat personal development as an ongoing responsibility rather than a temporary project. Measure your progress honestly. Celebrate evidence of improvement without becoming satisfied too early. Stay open, stay aware, stay willing to adjust, because one day you may realize the strongest version of yourself was not created through one breakthrough moment. It was built through thousands of smaller decisions where you chose learning over comfort, reflection over denial, and steady growth over standing still. And when that realization arrives, you will understand something important. The life you wanted did not appear suddenly. You built it slowly through the discipline of becoming a little better, while others waited for change to happen on its own. Chapter 7. Push through setbacks and keep moving with steady effort. Your true strength is revealed not when life moves smoothly, but when everything feels difficult, and you still decide to continue. Almost everyone admires success, but very few respect the long periods of frustration, disappointment, and uncertainty that often come before it. People notice achievements after they become visible. They rarely see the days when progress felt invisible. They do not see the moments when doubt became heavy. They do not see the private battles against discouragement. Yet those moments often shape a person more than success itself. Setbacks are part of every meaningful journey. No one builds a strong life without meeting obstacles. Plans fail. Expectations collapse. Effort sometimes produces slower results than hoped. People disappoint you. Circumstances change. The future becomes unclear. These experiences are uncomfortable, but they are not unusual. What matters most is not whether setbacks arrive. What matters is how you respond after they appear. Many people treat setbacks as proof that they should stop. They experience one failure and assume the path is wrong. They encounter resistance and decide they lack ability. They fall behind and conclude they are not capable of growth. But setbacks do not always carry the message people assign to them. Sometimes they are not telling you to stop. Sometimes they are asking you to adapt. There is an important difference between stopping and adjusting. Stopping abandons effort completely. Adjusting changes the approach while keeping commitment alive. Strong people learn this distinction. They do not continue blindly. They examine what happened. They learn. Then they move forward with more awareness. Steady effort matters because emotions change quickly. Some days bring confidence. Other days bring frustration. If effort depends entirely on feeling positive, consistency becomes fragile. Steady effort survives changing moods because it is connected to values rather than temporary emotion. Think about people who build anything lasting: skills, relationships, health, character. Meaningful progress rarely appears through one burst of intensity. More often it comes through repeated action, sustained across difficult periods. The person who continues quietly often reaches places. The person chasing constant excitement never does. Setbacks test interpretation. Two people may experience similar disappointment, yet respond differently. One sees failure as evidence of permanent limitation. Another sees information. The event remains the same. The meaning changes. Meaning influences response. Your interpretation of difficulty shapes your future more than the difficulty itself. This does not mean pretending pain feels pleasant. Honest strength does not deny disappointment. Some setbacks hurt deeply. Some losses change plans entirely. Some failures create grief. A strong response allows space for emotion without becoming trapped inside it. You can acknowledge disappointment and continue. You can feel discouraged without surrendering direction. You can rest without abandoning purpose. These distinctions matter because many people confuse temporary struggle with final defeat. Steady effort often looks ordinary. It may not feel dramatic. It may involve returning to simple habits after setbacks disrupted momentum, completing basic tasks, rebuilding routines, showing up before confidence returns. These actions seem small, yet they carry enormous value. After setbacks, people often want immediate recovery. They expect to return quickly to previous levels of motivation. Sometimes recovery moves slower. During those periods, focus on consistency rather than intensity. Consistency rebuilds stability. A person recovering from disappointment does not always need grand action. Sometimes they need one useful step repeated enough times to restore momentum. One completed task, one honest conversation, one healthy decision, one return to structure. Momentum often begins quietly. There is danger in waiting until circumstances improve before acting again. Waiting can become habit. Days pass. Hesitation grows. Returning feels harder. Action tends to reduce fear more effectively than endless thinking. Steady effort creates evidence. Evidence changes self-perception. When you continue despite difficulty, you prove something important to yourself. You prove that discomfort does not automatically stop you. You prove resilience exists even when confidence feels low. This evidence becomes valuable during future struggles because memory matters. You remember previous moments when continuing felt difficult, and yet progress happened eventually. Past endurance strengthens present persistence. People often underestimate their capacity because they measure themselves during comfortable periods. Difficulty reveals hidden abilities. Pressure sometimes exposes strengths you did not know existed. Patience, adaptability, persistence, calm. These qualities often become visible only when tested. Testing is uncomfortable, but discomfort sometimes introduces you to stronger parts of yourself. Another challenge after setbacks involves comparison. You may see others moving faster and assume your delays represent failure. But comparison ignores context. Different journeys include different obstacles. Comparing your difficult chapter to someone else's visible success creates distorted conclusions. Return attention to your own path. Ask whether you are moving forward relative to where you were before. Direction matters more than speed during difficult periods. Steady effort also requires protecting perspective. A setback affects one area of life, yet the mind sometimes expands it into everything. One disappointment becomes proof of inadequacy. One rejection becomes evidence that future attempts are pointless. This exaggeration increases suffering unnecessarily. Perspective reminds you that events remain specific. A difficult season does not define your entire identity. A failed attempt does not predict every future outcome. Reality is often less permanent than discouragement suggests. Strong people learn to separate events from identity. Something failed. That does not mean you are a failure. A plan did not work. That does not mean growth is impossible. Keeping these distinctions clear protects hope while preserving honesty. Hope deserves careful definition. Hope is not passive wishing. Useful hope stays connected to action. It says improvement remains possible, therefore effort continues. Hope without effort becomes fantasy. Effort without hope becomes exhaustion. Together they create endurance. Setbacks also reveal priorities. Difficult moments clarify what matters because distractions lose some influence. Challenges force questions. What deserves continued effort? Which habits support recovery? Which values remain important when conditions become uncomfortable? These questions create depth because they move attention toward essentials. The person who keeps moving through setbacks develops a different relationship with uncertainty. They stop expecting life to unfold exactly as planned. They become more flexible. Adaptability increases because experience teaches them. Plans may change while purpose remains. Purpose provides direction when conditions shift. There may be periods where progress feels invisible despite effort. Those periods test patience. Continuing without immediate reward requires maturity, yet many important developments happen before visible results appear. Roots grow before trees rise above ground. Human growth often follows similar patterns. Internal changes may occur before external evidence appears. Greater emotional control, better judgment, increased endurance. These developments matter even when unseen. Steady effort builds trust with yourself. Each time you continue after difficulty, reliability increases. You begin believing your own commitment because behavior provides proof. Self-trust changes decisions. You hesitate less. You recover faster. You become less dependent on perfect conditions. This does not mean becoming hard in every direction. Strength and gentleness can exist together. Push forward, but allow recovery. Continue, but recognize limits honestly. Sustainable endurance includes wisdom. There are moments when continuing means changing pace rather than stopping entirely. Walking still moves you forward when running becomes unrealistic. Slow progress remains progress. Many people quit because they believe reduced speed equals failure. It does not. Temporary slowing may preserve long-term consistency. Wisdom chooses endurance over unnecessary collapse. Imagine years of responding differently to setbacks. Instead of withdrawing completely, you adjust. Instead of abandoning values, you return to them. Instead of allowing disappointment to define identity, you continue building. These repeated responses shape character. Character built through steady effort becomes difficult to break. Because it has survived pressure repeatedly, the world often celebrates dramatic victories. Yet some of the strongest victories remain invisible. Waking up after disappointment and trying again, rebuilding after mistakes, maintaining integrity during difficult seasons, continuing useful habits when motivation disappears. These moments deserve respect because they require courage without applause. One day you may look back and realize your greatest strength was not talent or luck. It was your refusal to stop when stopping would have been easier. Your willingness to continue through uncertainty, your ability to carry effort across imperfect circumstances. That kind of endurance changes lives because it compounds over time. So when setbacks arrive, do not ask only why this happened. Ask who you choose to become through the experience. Let difficulty teach without ruling you. Let disappointment inform without defining you. Continue with patience. Continue with honesty. Continue with steady effort, even when progress appears slow. Because sometimes the difference between the life abandoned and the life achieved is found in a person who kept moving a little longer after everyone expected them to quit. Chapter 8. Build self-respect by keeping promises to yourself. Self-respect begins the moment you prove to yourself that your word still means something. A person's life changes when they stop treating their own promises like suggestions. Many people are careful with what they say to others, but careless with what they say to themselves. They decide to wake up early and then silence the alarm. They plan to finish the task and then delay it. They promise to eat better, rest better, think better, and live better, but then they keep lowering their own standards. Over time, the mind learns a painful lesson. It learns that your words do not always lead to action. That is where self-respect starts to weaken. Self-respect is not built through praise. It is built through proof. It comes from knowing that you do what you said you would do, even when nobody is checking. That private honesty matters more than any public image. You can have people admire you and still feel empty inside if you keep breaking your own word. But when you honor your promises to yourself, something deep begins to shift. You become calmer, stronger, more grounded. You start trusting yourself again. Many people think self-respect comes from appearance, attention, or success. Those things may affect confidence for a moment, but they do not create a stable inner life. Real self-respect comes from alignment. It comes from living in a way that matches what you claim to value. If you say health matters, then you act in ways that support it. If you say peace matters, then you protect your mind from constant chaos. If you say growth matters, then you keep learning. The more your actions match your beliefs, the more respect you build for yourself. Breaking promises to yourself may seem small in the moment, but the effect builds quietly. One missed workout, one ignored plan, one day of avoiding the hard conversation, one late night of giving in to distraction. Each one may feel harmless alone, yet together they create a pattern. The mind starts expecting inconsistency. Then when you try to change, resistance rises because your own history has taught your brain not to trust your intentions. Rebuilding that trust takes time, but it begins with one simple decision. Keep the next promise. This does not mean setting huge demands and forcing yourself into pressure. It means choosing promises you can actually keep and then keeping them with seriousness. Begin small if needed, but begin honestly. Promise to read 5 pages and read them. Promise to walk for 10 minutes and walk. Promise to prepare your day before sleeping and do it. These simple actions may look ordinary from the outside, but inside they are powerful. Each one says, "My word matters to me." That sentence changes more than behavior. It changes identity. A person who keeps promises to themselves begins to feel worthy of trust. They stop viewing themselves as weak in every area. They stop speaking to themselves with contempt. They stop feeling split between intention and action. Instead, they become more united. Their inner voice becomes firmer and kinder at the same time. This combination is rare, and it matters. Self-respect also grows when you stop asking for permission from your own excuses. Excuses often sound gentle. You are tired, you had a long day, you can do it tomorrow, you deserve a break. Sometimes rest is truly needed, and wisdom matters. But too often, excuses become a habit of avoiding discomfort. They delay the life you say you want. Every time you choose an excuse over a promise, you train your mind to believe your comfort comes before your commitment. That habit slowly lowers self-respect because it tells you that your own standards can be negotiated away. A stronger path is to speak to yourself with honesty and firmness. Tell the truth. I made a promise, and I need to keep it. This feels difficult, but it is important. I do not need to feel ready to begin. That kind of language may feel direct, but directness can be kind when it protects your future. It stops you from drifting. It brings you back to what matters. One of the clearest signs of self-respect is how you behave when no one will reward you. Anyone can stay committed when praise is near. The real test comes when the work is quiet and the results are slow. Do you still show up? Do you still keep your routine? Do you still do what you said would matter, even when nobody claps? That is where self-respect grows. It grows in the unseen hours. People often want confidence first, but confidence usually follows evidence. When you keep promises to yourself, you collect evidence. You prove that you can rely on your own decisions. That proof creates steadiness. It reduces self-doubt. It helps you move with less hesitation. A person who trusts themselves does not need to fight as much inside. They are not constantly wondering whether they will quit. They know they have history on their side. There is a certain peace that comes from being able to look at your own life without shame. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are taking responsibility and acting with care. That peace cannot be bought. It cannot be borrowed. It grows from repeated integrity. When you keep your promises, you sleep more easily. You carry less regret. You feel more settled in your own skin. Keeping promises to yourself also protects your future from hidden erosion. Many people think failure happens only in big moments. Often it starts in small betrayals. A person says they will write the report and then avoids it. They say they will save money and then spend carelessly. They say they will speak more honestly and then stay silent again. Every small betrayal weakens identity. Every small act of follow-through strengthens it. The future is shaped by which pattern wins more often. This kind of discipline is not about punishment. It is about care. When you honor your word, you are caring for your future self. You are making life easier for the person you will become tomorrow. You are leaving behind less confusion and more order. That is a generous way to live. It means you are not only thinking about the current mood, you are thinking about the long-term state of your life. If you have lost trust in yourself, do not respond with despair. Begin again with a simple standard. Make one promise for today. Keep it. Then make another tomorrow. Avoid dramatic vows that collapse under pressure. Choose steady promises that can be lived. Self-respect returns through repetition. It is not restored by one emotional moment. It grows when your actions become dependable again. There will be days when you feel low and do not want to do the right thing. That is normal. Discipline is not built for the easy days only. It is built for the difficult ones. When your energy is weak, do the smallest useful version of the promise rather than abandoning it completely. A shorter walk is better than none. 10 focused minutes are better than avoidance. A quiet return is better than a dramatic collapse. The point is not perfection. The point is faithfulness. When you keep promises to yourself often enough, your posture changes inwardly. You carry yourself with more calm. You stop needing to prove yourself through noise. You stop relying on outside approval for every decision. You know who you are becoming because your behavior shows it. That is self-respect in its strongest form. It is not arrogance. It is not ego. It is a quiet certainty that comes from living with integrity. And once you have that, your life becomes more stable in every direction. Your choices become clearer. Your habits become cleaner. Your standards become stronger. You begin to understand that self-respect is not something given to you by others. It is something you build by keeping your own word, one honest promise at a time. Chapter 9. Practice courage by doing hard things before comfort. Courage begins the moment you choose action, before comfort has a chance to make you hesitate. Most people wait too long to do what matters. They wait until they feel ready. They wait until the fear goes away. They wait until the task feels easier. They wait until the pressure disappears and the mood improves and the timing feels safer. But courage does not grow in waiting. Courage grows in movement. It grows when you face the hard thing while your heart is still racing and your mind is still unsure. It grows when you act before comfort gives permission. Comfort is not evil. Rest matters. Peace matters. Ease has its place. But comfort becomes a problem when it starts controlling your decisions. A comfortable life can slowly make a person smaller than they were meant to be. It can keep them quiet when they need to speak. It can keep them still when they need to move. It can keep them safe from short-term discomfort while blocking long-term growth. That is why courage matters so much. It pushes you beyond the narrow limits comfort creates. Hard things usually carry the lessons that shape character. A difficult conversation can teach honesty. A demanding task can teach patience. A new responsibility can teach confidence. A situation that makes you nervous can teach self-control. When you do hard things before comfort arrives, you build a habit of strength. You teach your mind that fear is not the final authority. You show yourself that discomfort can be carried without surrender. Many people think courage means never feeling afraid. That is false. Courage does not erase fear. It moves through fear with purpose. Fear may still be present, but it does not get to make the final decision. That difference is important. If you wait for fear to disappear completely, you may wait forever. But if you act while fear is present, you begin to change your relationship with it. Fear stops being a wall and starts becoming something you can walk through. The hard things in life are not always dramatic. Sometimes courage is quiet. It is sending the message you kept delaying. It is admitting the truth instead of hiding behind comfort. It is starting the task you have avoided for days. It is saying no when a situation pulls you away from your values. It is asking for help when pride wants silence. These moments may look small from the outside, but they are deeply important. They shape the kind of person you become. A person who always chooses comfort over difficulty slowly loses trust in themselves. They begin to believe that discomfort means danger. They step back too quickly. They retreat too often. They stop challenging themselves in meaningful ways. Over time, their world shrinks. They become skilled at avoiding, but not skilled at growing. Courage prevents that slow shrinking. It keeps life open. It keeps your mind alive. It keeps your future larger than your fears. One of the clearest signs of courage is starting before you feel fully prepared. Preparation matters, but perfect preparation is often an illusion. There will always be more to learn. There will always be reasons to delay. There will always be a version of the task that feels cleaner, easier, and more certain than the one in front of you. Courage understands that action itself is part of preparation. You learn by doing. You become stronger by entering the moment, not by waiting outside it. This is true in every area of life. If a skill matters, begin while you still feel awkward. If a responsibility matters, carry it before confidence arrives. If a truth needs to be spoken, speak it before fear hardens into silence. If a dream matters, move toward it before every doubt is resolved. Waiting for total comfort often becomes a way of postponing your life. Courage breaks that pattern. The mind usually offers many reasons to delay hard things. It says the moment is not ideal. It says you need more time. It says others are better prepared. It says the risk of discomfort is too high. Some of those thoughts sound practical, but they often hide hesitation. Courage asks a better question. Not will this be easy, but does this matter? If it matters, then discomfort may be part of the price. And a meaningful life is almost never built without a price. Doing hard things before comfort also teaches emotional strength. You learn that unpleasant feelings do not have to control your behavior. You can feel nervous and still move. You can feel uncertain and still begin. You can feel exposed and still continue. That kind of experience changes you from the inside. It gives you a quieter kind of confidence. Not loud confidence. Not the kind that needs attention. The kind that comes from proof. There is freedom in this. When you are no longer ruled by the need to feel comfortable first, your options expand. You can take action in situations that once shut you down. You can handle challenge without collapsing into self-doubt. You can enter difficult spaces with more stability. This does not make life painless. It makes you more capable inside pain. That is a serious difference. It helps to build courage in small steps. You do not need to begin with the hardest thing in your life all at once. Start with the smaller, uncomfortable actions you have been delaying. Have the difficult conversation. Make the first call. Wake up when you planned. Complete the task before reaching for easy distraction. Stand by your decision when it is easier to back down. Each act of courage strengthens the next one. Small courageous actions matter because they train your nervous system to tolerate discomfort without panic. They build a pattern. First it feels hard, then you act, then you survive it. Then you realize the discomfort was not as powerful as it seemed. That realization becomes useful the next time. Courage compounds in this way. One brave action supports another. A courageous person also understands the difference between wise caution and fear. Disguised as caution, wisdom is thoughtful. It looks at reality clearly. It considers consequences. It acts with care. Fear disguises itself as caution when it keeps you inactive long after you already know what must be done. Learning the difference protects you from unnecessary delay. There will be times when comfort seems tempting because the hard path feels lonely. Not everyone will understand your choices. Not everyone will support the effort. Some people may prefer that you remain predictable. Courage accepts that growth can separate you from old habits and old approval. That separation can feel uncomfortable, but it is often part of becoming stronger. A meaningful life asks for more than agreement from others. It asks for loyalty to what is right. Doing hard things before comfort also reshapes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs perfect conditions. You start seeing yourself as someone who can act in imperfect ones. That shift is powerful because identity influences future decisions. Once you know you can move before comfort arrives, the next difficult step becomes less threatening. You have evidence. You have experience. You have history on your side. The hardest part is often the beginning. The first step can feel heavy. The first word can feel difficult. The first moment can feel full of resistance. After that, something often changes. Momentum begins. The fear may not vanish, but it loosens. The task becomes more real than the worry. This is why courage often lives at the start of things. Cross the beginning, and the rest becomes more possible. A life built on courage is not a life without softness. It is a life where softness does not become avoidance. You can rest, you can recover, you can be calm. But when something important calls for strength, you answer. You do not wait for comfort to lead. You lead yourself. That is how courage becomes part of your character. Not through grand speeches, not through rare dramatic moments, through repeated choices that place purpose above ease, through small acts of bravery that build trust. through a habit of doing what is hard when it matters most. And over time, this changes everything. The things that once intimidated you no longer hold the same power. The path ahead feels less closed. Your decisions become bolder. Your mind becomes steadier. You begin to understand that courage is not the absence of discomfort. It is the decision to move anyway. Chapter 10. Win your life by choosing discipline over excuses. Winning your life is not about finding the perfect moment. It is about refusing to let excuses decide your direction. At the end of every transformation, there is a simple truth. The difference between the life people want and the life they live is often not talent, not opportunity, and not luck. It is the daily decision between discipline and excuses. One builds structure, strength, and direction. The other creates delay, confusion, and regret. Most people understand this idea, but very few live it consistently. That is why lives look so different even when people start from similar places. Excuses are comfortable in the moment, but they quietly weaken the future. They feel reasonable when they appear. You are tired, so you delay. You are busy, so you postpone. You are not in the mood, so you avoid. You will start tomorrow, so today becomes empty. Each excuse seems small, but together they shape identity. A person who repeats excuses long enough begins to believe them. Then excuses stop being temporary and become a pattern of living. Discipline works in the opposite direction. It does not wait for ideal conditions. It does not depend on emotional readiness. It does not require constant motivation. Discipline is built through action that continues even when resistance appears. It is the decision to stay aligned with what matters even when excuses try to take control. Over time, discipline creates reliability. You begin to trust yourself. That trust becomes the foundation of real progress. Many people think winning in life is a single achievement. In reality, it is a collection of daily decisions repeated over time. What you do repeatedly becomes your direction. If excuses are repeated, life drifts. If discipline is repeated, life strengthens. The outcome is not determined by occasional effort, but by consistent behavior. That is why small decisions carry so much weight. A single excuse may seem harmless, but a pattern of excuses slowly shapes the entire path. There is a point in every person's life where they must decide what will lead them. Will it be comfort or commitment? Will it be delay or discipline? Will it be avoidance or action? This decision is not made once and forgotten. It is made daily, sometimes even hourly. Each moment offers a choice between staying aligned with your intentions or stepping away from them. Winning life is the result of choosing discipline more often than excuses, even when it feels difficult. Excuses often disguise themselves as logic. They do not always sound weak. They can sound intelligent. They can sound protective. They can sound like self-care, but when examined closely, they often reveal avoidance of discomfort. Discipline accepts discomfort as part of progress. Excuses try to remove discomfort entirely. The problem is that a life without discomfort is also a life without growth. So excuses may protect comfort, but they also protect stagnation. A disciplined life is not built on intensity alone. It is built on repetition. It is the ability to return to what matters again and again, even after distraction, even after failure, even after delay. Returning is the real strength. Many people start strong but struggle to return after breaking rhythm. They treat one missed action as proof of failure. Discipline sees it differently. A missed step is not the end. It is a reminder to return quickly. Winning your life requires honesty, not harsh judgment, but clear awareness. Excuses thrive in confusion. When life feels unclear, excuses become easier to accept. When goals are vague, delay becomes more common. But when clarity increases, excuses lose power. Knowing what matters reduces internal negotiation. The mind stops debating endlessly and begins acting more directly. A disciplined person simplifies decisions. They reduce unnecessary negotiation with themselves. Instead of asking whether they feel like doing something, they ask whether it needs to be done. Feelings are acknowledged, but they are not given full authority. This shift is subtle but powerful. It reduces the emotional weight of every decision. Life becomes less chaotic and more structured. Excuses often appear strongest when energy is low. This is where discipline becomes most important. Anyone can act when energy is high. The real test comes when energy is low but responsibility remains in those moments. Discipline becomes a quiet force. It does not rely on enthusiasm, it relies on commitment. That commitment carries you through days when motivation is absent. Over time, discipline creates identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to be consistent and start seeing yourself as someone who acts consistently. This shift changes everything. Identity influences decisions more than intention. Once you identify as disciplined, excuses begin to feel out of place. They no longer match who you are becoming. That mismatch weakens their influence. Excuses also lose power when you experience the results of discipline repeatedly. Each time you choose discipline, you create evidence. Evidence builds confidence. Confidence reduces hesitation. Reduced hesitation makes discipline easier next time. This cycle strengthens itself. On the other side, excuses also build a cycle. Each excuse makes the next one easier. That is why direction matters so much. Small, repeated choices compound in one direction or another. A winning life is not free from struggle. It is not a life where everything feels easy. It is a life where excuses no longer dominate decisions. Struggle may still exist. Pressure may still appear. Challenges may still arise. But discipline remains steady within them. That steadiness becomes a form of personal strength that is not easily shaken. There is also a deeper layer to discipline. It is not only about productivity or success. It is about self-respect. Every time you choose discipline over excuse, you reinforce the belief that your goals matter. Every time you choose excuse over discipline, you weaken that belief. Over time, this shapes how you see yourself. Self-respect grows when actions align with intentions. It declines when actions repeatedly contradict them. Many people underestimate how much internal conflict comes from repeated excuses. Part of them wants change. Another part avoids effort. This creates tension. Discipline reduces that tension because it removes internal contradiction. You no longer argue with yourself as much. You simply act according to your chosen direction. That simplicity brings peace. Winning your life is not about eliminating excuses completely. Thoughts will still appear. Moments of hesitation will still arise. The difference is response. Do you follow the excuse or act beyond it? That response, repeated over time, defines your path. There will always be easier choices available. That will never change. But easier choices do not always lead to stronger lives. Discipline is choosing what strengthens you over what only comforts you in the moment. It is a long-term mindset applied in daily actions. It prioritizes direction over delay. When you look back at your life, the moments that matter most will not be the times you delayed. They will be the times you acted despite resistance, the times you chose effort over avoidance, the times you stayed committed when excuses felt strong. Those moments shape identity more than anything else, so the path is clear. Notice excuses when they appear, but do not obey them. Recognize their presence, but do not give them control. Return to action. Return to responsibility. Return to discipline. Repeat this often enough, and something important changes. You stop living as someone who negotiates with life and start living as someone who leads it. And in that shift, life begins to feel different. Not easier, but clearer. Not free of challenge, but guided by purpose. Because winning is not the absence of excuses. Winning is the consistent decision to choose discipline instead of them, until that choice becomes who you are.